Let's talk Falk. Today on Uncle Scott's Kitchen, we have a big in-depth review and cooking feature on this guy. This is a Falk Culinair, stainless steel lined, thick, heavy copper saucier pan. We're going to go through its stats and features, talk a little bit about Falk quality, do a little cooking, and see if this is a good pan for your money. Let's get started. So let's take a look at this thing and go through its stats and features, and then we'll do a little bit of cooking. Now, one of the first things you notice about it is that it has a brushed copper exterior. It's kind of called a satinated or satin exterior. They brush these things and you can kind of feel it when you run your fingers across it. It's stainless steel lined, and you notice that there's also kind of a satin type finish to the stainless steel. You can really tell a difference between the stainless steel lining in this pan and some of the 1810 polished stainless steel in some of my other frying pans. It has a solid cast iron, very heavy, kind of classic style handle. When you pick this thing up for the first time, it feels like it's built like a tank. This pan here, this small saucier pan, weighs in at almost 3.5 pounds. That is very heavy. It is solid right off the bat. Now it's got 3 interior rivets. I know a lot of people don't like rivets. These are fairly small and really don't get in the way all that much. This one is a 1.4 quart model. I found that in cooking in this thing, 1.4 quarts, really you can get about 3 cups of liquid in there before it starts to seem a little too full. Now this is a saucier pan, and that means it has kind of curved sides where the sides of the pan meet the bottom of the pan, and that's supposed to be easier to use a whisk or a spatula to kind of get food out of the corners, if you will. No corners on this pan. Pretty small pan, less than 5 inches of flat surface on the bottom, a little bit less than 5 inches of cooking surface on the interior, and a little less than 7.5 inches edge to edge on the top. Now they do sell a lid for these things. I think the lid was another 85, 90 bucks. I couldn't bring myself to buy that lid, but I did find that the lid from my Moviel actually fits on this one pretty well. So I've been using that for a lid. This pan has 2.3 millimeters of solid copper and a 0.2 millimeter stainless steel lining. Now this is my first Falk pan, and I was really unfamiliar with Falk until I started looking around. I was going to upgrade and add to my collection of copper cookware. I'm a big fan of Moviel, and I wanted to add some new Moviel pans, some of their copper, and I always like to get that 2.5 millimeter thick copper. It's turning out that it's very tough to find that these days. Moviel has stopped making them. So when I couldn't find any Moviel that I wanted, I ran across Falk. It turns out they are still making the thicker, heavier, real deal copper cookware. Right off the bat, I give them a thumbs up for that. They were running a sale called a Try Me sale when I ran across them. Normally with copper cookware, the smaller pans cost less. The bigger you get, the price goes up, and it's kind of an upward sloping graph. Where this pan lies or lay on that graph, there was a big valley. There was a nice screaming deal on this one. I think I paid about $155 for it. Without a lid, I got it in, and I've been using this thing for about 6 weeks now, doing a lot of cooking in it. And I should just note here that this was not provided to me for any promotional purposes. I paid for it with my own money. It keeps my opinions and reviews as genuine as possible, I hope. First thing I want to cook here are one of nature's most perfect foods, cheese grits. Now, as a former Southerner, I do kind of cook the real deal grits. These you have to boil for 15 to 20 minutes covered. And if you don't know what grits are, they are made out of corn. They are hard and dry, and they have to be boiled. You have to soften them up as they cook. Get the lid on there and let those cook 15 minutes or so. And once they are kind of done to my liking, I remove the lid and I add in a bunch of shredded cheese. Stir that up really well, and these grits came out fantastic. Now, if you don't know how to eat grits, I kind of eat them as a main a lot of times, but really they are more of a side dish, a complementary food for things like bacon and eggs. Now, as a kid growing up in Alabama, I got to where I would eat grits on toast. Grits on toast. I think that was low carb. Absolutely love these, and the pan did really well. If you've ever cooked grits, you know that you kind of need to soak those to get those out of the pan for the cleanup. Let's take a look at cleaning up this Falk pan. I soaked my grits in the sink for a while, and I made a mistake here. I kind of went off and left the pan. People came through, put more dishes in, they washed their hands in the sink, and over 6 or 7 hours before I came back to wash the pan, the handle got wet and I got some flash rust on the handle. So the handle will rust. That turned out to not be that big of a deal. I got some white vinegar on a paper towel and kind of just washed that off of there. And I took some oil and kind of re-oiled the handle. But just know, if you get a pan like this with a real deal cast iron handle, it will rust if you leave it wet. Kind of comes into play if you need to soak the pan. If you can soak the pan, try not to do it for much more than an hour, and make sure that the handle is not down in any kind of like dishwater, and absolutely make sure you never put this thing in your dishwasher. Hand wash only a nice pan like this. Also, one other little nitpick here, the pan has a curved lip, and that curved lip helps to pour liquids out of the pan. But I noticed that where the handle meets the pan, underneath that lip, occasionally food can get stuck in there. If you're kind of a messy cook like I am, occasionally I had to get a toothpick and kind of pick a little food out of there. And also on the lines of cleanup, that interior, that satin stainless steel. Now, if you've used stainless steel pans, you know that occasionally you kind of get that little bit of a rainbow effect, or you wash the pan and there's still some sort of haze or halo in the pan. I found that almost every time I use this Falk, I had to go in, after I washed and dried the pan, it would look like this. If I went in with some white vinegar and rubbed that around, it would take all that off, or reverse whatever kind of chemical reaction that was. It would be fine. But I note that with this pan, and not so much all my other pans, I had to do that pretty much every time I used the pan. Now, I've cooked in this thing 25 to 30 times over the last 6 weeks or so. What I do a lot with it is reheat ribollita. On weekends, I'll make a big 6 or 8 quart Dutch oven full of ribollita. We'll have it for Sunday dinner, and then for the rest of the week, I will eat that for my lunch with some of my wife's homemade bread. Absolutely delicious. If you've never made ribollita, you should definitely try it. But one thing I've used this pan for over and over and over is reheating that ribollita. We also made cream of wheat in it, I think 7 times for my little son. My wife makes the cream of wheat with milk. And of course you still have to stir it, but we got nice even heating and no scorching on that milk as we made the cream of wheat. Really do like that. And with the ribollita and the cream of wheat, I just want to note that the pan seems to heat nicely and evenly. And with copper on a gas flame, you don't have to use a big high flame. You can use a much lower flame, like medium low is perfect for cooking things like that. You get nice even boiling. Now, moving down to the electric flat top stove in the basement, just browning some butter here, just to show that you can see those brown bits kind of nicely against that lighter stainless steel interior. Now, as this is a smaller pan, let's finish off here with a little baby bechamel with some cheese. I got 2 tablespoons butter, 2 tablespoons flour. I get the butter melted and crackling and sizzling. I'm going to use a little bit of thyme, some salt, pepper. Get those in there, let those sizzle for a bit. In goes the flour. And here I'm going to use a coated whisk. Now, with the stainless steel lining and interior, it can handle an uncoated metal whisk. I tend to kind of baby my pans a little bit, so I am using a coated metal whisk here just to be a little bit more gentle on the surface. Cook that for a minute or two, get that raw flour taste out of there. In goes some milk. And again, keep stirring and stirring and stirring. That will eventually thicken up. When no one's looking, I add a shake of cayenne. Some shredded cheese. Keep stirring until that is all nice and smooth. And here, if the sauce is a little too thin, you can cook it a little bit longer. Or here, mine was a little bit too thick and I added some more milk, a tablespoon at a time, until I got it the way I wanted it. And a little bechamel sauce with cheese in it. Absolutely fantastic if you've got a 3-year-old and want him to try a bite of broccoli. Slather it with cheese sauce. As a matter of fact, I like it on cereal. Now, if I made one mistake in buying this pan, if I could go back in time and know then what I know now, I would just go ahead and get a bigger pan. I would not get that try me deal. I would just go ahead and get a bigger saucier pan that I could do more with. I think at 1.4 quarts for this pan in particular, it may be a little bit of overkill if you're just going to do things like cream of wheat for your kid or reheating soup, a lot of what I did. For bigger, more in-depth cooking, I would like to have a bigger saucier pan. That said though, Falk has kind of earned my admiration for their quality. I'm very impressed. I'm going to add them to my good copper cookware list. If I see some Falk go on sale, if they have a deal on something, I would not hesitate to buy another piece of Falk copper. So for the Falk 1.4 quart Belgian made copper stainless steel line saucier, I like it. It's built like a tank. It looks good, and I give it a thumbs up. Now make sure you check out the shopping links below if you'd like to get one for yourself. Leave your questions, comments, and feedback below. Look somewhere on this screen for links to other videos you might enjoy. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time on Uncle Scott's Kitchen.